There are two questions which we need to deal when we talk about Iran. One, does Iran has the right to have access to a civilian nuclear technology? That's question number one. Question number two, does Iran has the right to have access to a military nuclear technology? The answer to the first question, there's no question in my mind. They should have it, and we can talk about it if you wish. How about number two? Do they should have access to military technology? And my answer to that, it depends on the following. If you are going to promote a policy of a free zone of nuclear bombs in that neighborhood, that no country in that neighborhood have access to nuclear bomb, then I am for the idea Iran should not have it. On the other hand, listen to that carefully, if Pakistan has the right to have a nuclear bomb, if occupied Afghanistan has the right to have a nuclear bomb, because the Americans have access in Afghanistan to nuclear bomb, if Russia has a right to a nuclear bomb, if occupied Iraq, because the American in Iraq have access to nuclear bomb, has the right, and if Israel has the right, so how on earth we can convince the Iranian you cannot have access to nuclear technology? The best thing to do, if you want to argue on an ethical, on moral, and legal, is that this area should be free of nuclear military technology, period. But what our government say, you Israel, you can have it, but you Iran, you cannot have it. That argument is not going to sell. If not Iran, somebody else will try to acquire nuclear technology. So we need to be honest with ourselves. We have to clean our house. We have to clean our morals. We have to clean our policy. If we want to convince the Iranian, let's do it the right way. What is wrong with the idea that no country in that neighborhood should have access to military technology? What is wrong with it? And by the way, whoever tell you that if Iran can use, if they have a nuclear bomb, they can bomb Israel out of the map. They cannot do it. You know why? Because if they bomb Israel, they bomb the Palestinian too. So, I mean, don't worry about that. The question that if it's okay for us to send money to Israel, whether on a governmental basis or civilian basis, some Jewish may send money to Israel. Why not it's okay for Iran? This is what you are saying? For American Muslim to send money to Iran or somewhere else. Well, I found it very unusual, to tell you the truth. The only answer which I can give you is very simple. The Israeli are my friend and the Iranian are our enemy. So anybody who tries to help our enemy, they are terrorists or whatever you may like to call them. I don't buy this argument, by the way, but that is basically the justification. Do I believe the Holocaust exists or it ever happened in Europe? I have no problem to say yes, it happened. And I have no problem to say yes about it. But I'm going to say something which may irritate you. There are many other equivalent Holocausts happen many ways. And let me give you an example. How many of us remember that Hitler killed approximately 20 million Russians? That is a Holocaust for me. So I'm not going to deny it because I believe in it. But all what I'm saying, we should also remember the other Holocaust, the other genocide. And there are many of them. There are a dime a dozen. So it doesn't bother me to say, yes, it happened. Can I go into the demographic of the Israeli-Palestinian questions? That is a tough question to answer. Let me make one or two or three points about it. You see, if you study the Jewish community in Israel, the only way for the Jewish community to grow in that neighborhood is by people coming from abroad to join them. They cannot grow from within. Did you hear what I'm saying? If you study the birth rate on the Jewish population, and I'm talking about the Jewish population in Israel, I'm not talking about them there, and you are going to find out the birth rate among them is less than 20 per thousand. They cannot even replace themselves. That's as simple as that. Why? Most of them are of European origin, and many of them are highly educated. Their education is very high. And people with higher education, better standard of living, they tend to have what? A smaller birth rate. They don't like to have 10 kids. That's as simple as that. So they really have a big problem in terms of growth of their population. And this is why in 1990, and I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember 1990, in 1990, Israel received about 1 million Russian immigrants. And guess why they went, all of them, to Israel? Not because they wanted to go to Israel. Because the Israeli Prime Minister Shamir, and I don't know if he's still alive or not, asked Bush Sr. to block their entry to the U.S. And that's the only way all of them or most of them went to Israel. Otherwise, the study has shows every time the Soviet Union allowed these Jews of the Soviet Union before 1990, most of them came to this country. Only about 15 or 20% went to Israel. So the point which I want to say again and again, for the Jewish community to grow, they have no choice but to depend on the Jewish people abroad. Now look at it this way. What is the total Jewish population abroad? And what is the total Jewish population all over the world? Go and check in your computer. They will tell you 13 to 14 to 15 million. So there's not a big universe you can draw on. So this is a serious problem. Now when you talk about the Palestinian population, guess what? The birth rate is very high. And I'm going to say something which some of you may think it's funny, is that they have nothing to do but make love. No, they are unemployed, they have nothing to do, and the situation is miserable. I mean, one of the most interesting examples which come to my head is that the Prime Minister, the guy who won the election 3 years ago, his name is Ismail Haniyeh. He's now in Gaza Strip. He is in his 50s, and to my knowledge, he had 13 kids. So what I'm trying to say, when you talk about the demography of the Palestinian, the birth rate among the Palestinians is one of the highest. There are all sorts of reasons for it. So in a span of 20 or 30 years, there will be more Palestinians than the Jews in that neighborhood. And this is why Netanyahu keeps saying, oh yeah, you better recognize us as a Jewish state. You better recognize our Jewish state. Because if they believe in democracy and everybody has an equal right, sooner or later, they will be outnumbered. So the demography is a very serious problem. And this is one of the reasons, from my perspective also, why they don't want to have peace. Now, I was asked this question 5 years ago, and I said something then, and people don't believe me. I said, we never go to war with Iran. Israel will never go to war with Iran. And we talk about it, but we never do it. And partly because, and listen to that carefully, we think about Iran as strategic allies in the future, to be used against whom? Against the Sunni, against the Arab, etc. Let me make one interesting comment. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the invasion of Afghanistan, the Tier 201. That war with Afghanistan, that war will not take place without the help of Iran. We know that. The invasion of Iraq was done with the help of Iran. I can give you all sorts of quotes about it, right and left. The vice president of the Iranian president, Mohammad Khatami, said it, and I have the quote, that without our help and active participation, the US will never invade Iraq. So what I'm trying to say, there's something fishy happened in the year 2002, 2003. The relationship between Iran and the US became quite cozy. But something went wrong in the head of the Bush administrations. It came to their head that we invaded Iraq. It was very easy. We expected a change in Iran government, and we expected a change in Syria, and it didn't work. So the strategy of the axis of evil, it did not work. But had the Bush administration listened very carefully, the situation could have been very, very different. And I have a feeling Obama is moving in that direction. He still may talk a little bit tough, but he is for engagement. And I think this is the right policy. But I would say that, and if I see you 5 years from now, you remind me and I remind you, we'll never hit Iran. Nor Israel will never do that. I will do a few things here and there, by the way. We'll talk tough. And by the way, that's another interesting comment. We talk tough for a different reason. Guess what? So we can sell the Saudi more arms. So the Qatari can buy more arms from us. And they're spending billions of dollars. I mean, Israel spent $12 billion. Look what the Saudi are spending their money. And where is the Saudi army?